Dorleen Richardson doesn't go in her garage anymore. These bullet holes remind her of the worst day of her life.
His feet were right at that door, and his body was that way.
The Army veteran suffered from diagnosed PTSD, and after an episode that lasted days, on January 25th, his family called 911.
Ma'am, can you tell me what's going on?
I'll tell you, he just shot the gun.
Okay, who is it that has a gun?
My husband.
The encounter with Johnston County deputies ended Anthony Richardson's life. The case is still under investigation, and his wife is packing to move from the home that they saved for. There's one thing holding her back.
Right now, the VA is waiting on medical records from the medical examiner. His autopsy and his toxicology report is all pending. Only thing they tell me is that they backlogged.
Veterans Affairs tells us it requires official evidence identifying cause of death in order to determine eligibility to survivors' benefits. The Office of the Medical Examiner, known as OCME, told Richardson to keep checking back in, but it could take 6 months. Because deputies shot and killed her husband, state pathologists have to analyze his body as part of the investigation. These former or suspended officers have a lot in common. They're facing charges for breaking the law, and they worked their way from a larger city or county department down to a smaller one. There's Chad Penland, arrested this week and charged with statutory sex offense with a minor. Prior to joining Wake Med Campus Police, Penland was an officer with the Morrisville Police Department.
Good afternoon.
Peter Blake worked at Benson Police. In April, he was charged with forcible rape, kidnapping, burglary, and involuntary sexual servitude. Before Benson PD, he resigned from Raleigh Police while under investigation.
Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands.
And Mark Oakley, a former Warrenton police officer indicted last year for allegedly using a taser on multiple people without justification. He's also facing a federal lawsuit. Before working in Warrenton, he resigned while under investigation from Roanoke Rapids Police. Officers can resign while under internal investigation in North Carolina. Why they were under investigation is not public record.
Stroud, I guess you got to go back out there and do it all, don't you?
In Nash County, Sheriff Keith Stone says he won't hire anyone that falls below his high standards, but not every department has that luxury.
So they've got to pick and choose on what they're getting, and it makes it very difficult. It all goes back to pay and benefits for them to have people to want to come there and stay there.
Sources tell WRAL the reason that small departments end up with the so-called bad apples of law enforcement comes down to 3 things: the hiring officers' time and resources, their level of training and background checks, and the pressure to fill the position. This is the form that law enforcement has to fill out if they leave any job in the state for any reason. And if they leave under investigation, they have to explain why on page 2. Jeff Welty, UNC public law professor and a member of the Criminal Justice Education and Training Standards Commission, stresses while the information may be available, not all hiring officers will look deeper into why a candidate fell under investigation.
And the agency either doesn't catch on the background investigation what the prior problems were, or does catch them and is just under so much pressure to kind of complete their staffing and with such a small number of interested applicants that they're willing to take a chance on an officer that a larger agency might not.
To ensure better background checks are done, the law changed last year, requiring hiring agencies to look beyond the basic information the candidate reports about themselves.
And if they are moving from one agency to another, the hiring agency must check the personnel file at the agency where they most recently were. And they also have to check any place they've been within the past 5 years.
Which suggests that that wasn't being done before.
It was not being done consistently.
But the law does not specify what a complete personnel file should include.
Where everybody's trying to comply with the law, but what one agency wants or thinks it might be getting may not always be exactly what the other agency thinks it's required to produce.
North Carolina also offers training for officers on how to do background checks, but Sheriff Stone knows smaller departments often cannot spare an officer for that training.
But also, let's really face it, money is a factor too. If they can't find anybody else and they're demanded to have a police officer to cover shifts, then they're probably going to go and find somebody to fit that bill.
Law enforcement on the state level will soon see pay increases thanks to a budget that lawmakers passed here earlier this month. But Sheriff Stone says to fix this problem, it really comes down to North Carolina reinstating health care and cost of living increases for officers after they retire if they want to attract quality officers in the future. In Raleigh, Megan Cloherty, WRAL News. Every candidate running to be Wake County DA is a Democrat, so they have a lot in common when it comes to the issues. We went looking for differences. Wiley Nickel is a politician. You likely recognize him because he was a congressman. Before that, a state senator, and before that, a defense attorney. But in that job, he never prosecuted a case. The two women that he's running against are prosecutors. They both work in the DA's office in Wake County. The difference between them, their experiences. Sharita Walton worked in the DA's office in New York City. She's defended people, and now she advises law enforcement. Melanie Shakita has only worked in Wake County, and she wants to run the office where she spent her entire career.
Do you live in Wake County?
Along with the early voters in Cary, a strange pairing. Two candidates who happen to be running against each other stand side by side. Sharita Walton, Melanie Shakita, both running for DA, both out to make an impression.
She's first on the ballot.
That's exactly right. I am the #1 candidate on your ballot. So I would love to tell you a little bit about me.
Great.
All three candidates are Democrats. They want to crack down on violent crime, create a mental health court, and support the death penalty, but only in extreme cases. Sharita Walton has the outgoing DA's endorsement. Walton's priority, reducing violent crime.
And so I do want to have a violent crime unit. I want to make sure that, the resources, particularly with experienced prosecutors, that we are addressing violent crime offenses in a very strategic and a very intentional way.
And there's more. Walton also wants to increase the office's transparency, create a court to clear the backlog of misdemeanor cases, and ensure the community understands her role.
We need to make sure that we're just minimizing those gaps of information by showing up in the community, not just when bad things actually happen.
My boss decided to retire, and so here I am.
Melanie Shakita also wants to focus on violent crime, specifically kids using guns. And she says she plans to personally be there to prosecute violent felonies. What's the first thing you'll change if you get the office?
I would like to get some buy-in from our partners in the defense bar and the legal community to see what they think is working and to see what isn't maybe working or needs to change. One of the things that I believe we need to do a better job of is recruiting and retaining experienced prosecutors.
Shakita expects her biggest challenge will be managing the staff.
I know, I guess I should say, what this office needs. I know what the people in our office want to see, and that is an environment where people feel valued, an environment where people come to work wanting to do the hard work. This is hard work.
Now to Wiley Nickel. He has no problem with name recognition, but his opponents say he doesn't have the experience for the job.
Do you think it's a weakness that you don't have an inner understanding of how the office works like your challengers do?
I think what's important about this job is it's not a practicing attorney. The Wake County District Attorney doesn't go and do a one-month-long jury trial. It's 100,000 cases a year. The experience that matters is running a law firm, which I did, and running a large government office, which I did in Congress. You're there to make big decisions for the community, and that's why I'm uniquely qualified for this role, because I've done that.
Nickel plans to use his influence to fight political corruption, double the number of prosecutors, and get money to increase resources.
We need to prioritize violent crime, property theft, gun violence. Those are the things where I see we need to move more resources toward those, and that's going to be my focus.